I'm Jeremy Tucker. I'm a business operations advisor at Edison. I've been there for 14 years. Started out in planning and design. I was there for 5 years and then moved into support of AUD. And I've been doing that for 9 years now. I'm the business program owner for the distribution side of the house. We also have implemented in transmission. And then, from some of the other presentations, you've heard that we're doing a substation implementation as well. And by the way, if you have any questions as we go along, feel free to interrupt me, and I'll be glad to answer them. So just a little bit about our current system. We're on the MAP 3D 2019, Vault Professional 2019. As of 2 weeks ago, we're on the AUD 8.4. We have a UDH EAM, UDH GIS, and then just a little look at our user base. We have 935 laptop users and 630 Citrix users. And that's not a typo, so I'll kind of give you guys a view to what our design organization looks like. So local planning, that's our local district planners, so that they handle most of all of our new business. Just keep in mind too, fun fact, our service territory is 50,000 square miles and we have 14 million customers. So that's why we have so many people. So we have the job classifications are broken down between planner and designer. Typically, the roles have kind of fluctuated throughout the years. Before, planners were just planners and designers just did design work, and then it kind of flipped and planners were doing design work and the planning, and designers were just doing more like costing and billing and making work order packages and that type of stuff. Over the last 5 years, we've really made a push to move the designers back into a more design type role. So they are doing the lion's share work of the design, but it does change by planning group. So local planning, the designers do most of the drawing. But in technical planning does all of our infrastructure work. So they do, all of our maintenance, new circuits. Right now, big thing is high fire mitigation for us. So they're handling all the reconductoring for overhead stuff. But most of their planners, they're working on very large, complex designs. Those projects typically take, you're looking the scope for like 3 to 4 months just in design. So those are really large projects. And they do, most of them don't like to hand the design over to a designer to draw. They want to have their hands on it. So that's how that goes. We have a group for new development planning. So that's all new residential housing tracts. And that's all they do is new business. And most of those designs go to this next section here, the design drafting group. So we actually have a design drafting group that is, just basically 50 professional drafters, and all they do are housing tracts. Then you can see we have 50 transmission designers, and then you look at our contractors, we have 500 planners and 130 designers and contractors. So the way that kind of works out is that our laptop users are our SCE internal users, and then we're hosting the contractors on Citrix. That was a compromise for us. So, our IT operations wanted us all to go into Citrix, and we were like, no, we're scared of going to Citrix because other groups within the company have been hosted on Citrix, and it wasn't a great experience. So as a compromise, they promised it's going to work, it's going to be great. So we said, okay, well, let's host the contractors instead of the internal users. So it's working out good. I imagine eventually in the future, hopefully the far future, that everybody will be hosted on Citrix. What we've been doing, so just a little background. We actually, rolled into production last year in January of 2021, and that's when we went live. We started training in January of 2021, and it took us, 4 months to train everybody. So basically the way that we handled training was it was virtually, obviously, and we had about 30 people per class, 4 days of 8 hours of training. And while that was happening, our legacy system was still in operation, so it was running in parallel with the new AUD as we implemented it. So we were having to manage, designs being produced from the old system, and then also, the new system, and trying to, match all those things up. So what we've been doing since then, we've upgraded AUD core version 3 times. So we rolled out with 8.2, I think, or 8.25. I don't remember which one exactly. And like I said, now we're on 8.4. Just a little story behind that. So previously we were on the old Autodesk AUD. We had implemented that back in 2009, and we spent millions and millions of dollars customizing it. And we can thank Chuck for that. I see him being really happy. But what that ended up happening with that was that we were so customized that we could never move forward in anything, including AutoCAD versions. That's how badly customized we were. So one of the major, drivers behind this project was we need to stay flexible to be able to move ahead as the technology goes. So the way that fits with this is it's been my goal every time. If we have the opportunity when we're going to do a maintenance release and then there's a new version available, let's do it, because I want to show how flexible we are now, with being able to do that. So I think that is a pretty good message to upper management that, hey, we've only had the product, for a little over a year and a half, and we've already moved forward with the releases that have come out from SBS. So we've done 3 maintenance releases, and we've delivered approximately 120 configuration items in those releases. It looks like now, we're still trying to find our rhythm as far as how often we do these types of releases. Before, our program was managed by our internal IT, and they're kind of scared of this program now. So we have a service contract with SBS, but our IT is still kind of the middleman. So there's a lot of red tape to get through to get stuff to move through. So it looks like right now, we'll probably be doing quarterly, major releases as far as for fixes and enhancements and that stuff. Seems like that will be our cadence. Standards updates are some things that we're working on. I kind of didn't have this in my presentation, but then I hear all the presentations before me, everybody talking about standards and how great standards are, and you can put standards in AUD, and now we can enforce standards. That is awesome. But one thing that just want everybody to really think about is who handles that after you roll out? And what does that process look like? Because that's been a major gap for us, because we have quarterly standards releases, and we don't always know what standards are changing until they're published. And so now we have the tool that is no longer adhering to the current standard, right? So you just want to really take a good look at what that looks like. We're trying to change our processes now. We've, got ourselves added into like the standards review team and those kind of things so that we know what's coming ahead of time and try and kind of, be able to be ahead of that so we are not so far behind in updating those types of things. So just something to think about. This one kind of blows me away, even me, and I work there. We are nearing 65,000 AUD designs. So, I mean, that's been a little over a year and a half, but you got to also remember that the first 4 months we were still training, and most people were still working in the old tool because we hadn't decommissioned it yet. So even though we trained a bunch of people, not all of them jumped right in and decided, hey, I'm going to use this new great thing that you gave me. Go figure, right? And we even found more recently that we had some, like how we had the rogue implementers over here. We have the rogue designers that were using Bluebeam and other tools and making copies and putting their files into Vault like they did their jobs in AUD. So we had to put a nix on that. But overall, I think that's pretty impressive. It's a lot of designs. One of the other things that we're working on, I had mentioned that, fire mitigation is really big right now, so is data quality, and, those things kind of go hand in hand. So we are working on an enhancement, just working with a couple of the other departments that are managing that, to be able to take a little bit, leverage the high fire layer stuff inside of our GIS more into AUD, and I'll kind of show you guys where that's going. One of the other things that this has kind of been a talk, we really wanted to do this because this is a big part of our business. We wanted to do more with this during the project, but we just didn't have time or capacity to do it. So we're like running kind of bare bones with this process right now, enough to get us by. But, we have third-party designers that are submitting designs for, the home builders, the home developers to us. And we have to take those designs and be able to convert them into our system, into AUD. Right now we're using AUD CAD Convert for that. It works okay. There are some struggles with that. But, our overall goal is to actually, require those applicant designers to use AUD and, provide them with a version of our template, that they can use. And so when we bring it back, that, it's a lot smoother transition for us. And fun fact on that, I found, talked to somebody the other day, and our design group, that ones that do the design of the tracks, currently right now, 75% of their work is applicant design coming in, and they're having to do, a lot of conversion and stuff on that. So looking forward to kicking that off. We are currently have started the pilot for Playback Manager. So right now we're only talking one way from GIS. We're pulling GIS data into AUD. We want to close that loop with the Playback Manager. So that's underway. I think we actually just kind of got our first iteration of a prototype going, and they're starting some testing this week on that. All right, any questions on that stuff before I get to the fun stuff? That was like the boring stuff, right? No. Okay, so he asked, for fire mitigation, what are we doing? Are we, replacing wire? Are we going underground? So most of the areas, like everybody says, we're an overhead utility, so we're trying not to go underground if we don't have to. But most of the areas where we have a lot of problems are very rural and mountainous, so underground's not really an option in those areas. So we are doing a reconductoring with covered conductor And we're just doing miles and miles and miles of reconductoring with cover conductors. And that's mainly like what our tech planning group is doing right now. They said, if I ever see another pole line with cover conductor, it'll be too soon. So, but anybody else? Okay. All right, so I'm going to kind of jump back and forth here. Some things like this you may have seen before, because some of these are ideas that I got from coming to this conference, before our project. So, but I haven't seen them in a while, so I was like, hey, might as well share it again. It's might be a little bit different take on what you've seen before. So in my deck, I put a bunch of screenshots. So, if you get the deck afterwards, at least you have that to refer back to as well. But I'll try and do some live stuff here for you. So the first thing is previews. So we created some previews from our GIS where we can view them using a raster image inside of AUD. And the things that we chose was we can preview facilities, land base, work order polygons, and high fire zones. So I just geolocated to an address. This is actually one of our service centers. And, we're using the online map display, so I can kind of pull that up and give us some context to what we're looking at. When we're doing design, you need to know when you're bringing your stuff in, how do I design it? Do I need to use some of the materials, that we've designated for high fire use, some of our fusing and, fall indicators and conductor and even poles. We're using composite poles in those areas now. So, you want to kind of know where you're at, what zone. And we do have, I think we have different ratings, like it's elevated or there's some red finally. So basically you can kind of overlay, where you're at and see, does it fall within. The enhancement that we're actually working on will allow you to basically select your facilities or your features in the design and run a service that'll go pull the GIS, and it'll pull the actual rating out of the GIS and set it in an attribute on the design or on the feature. And we'll actually push that data back, through with the rest of the work order information through the work management system and back into SAP and all that good stuff. So that's our high fire. Oops. Let me clear those and zoom back in so we don't typically zoom out that far. So all these views are based on the extents of your model space that you're in right now, and also the zoom scale. So whatever zoom scale that you're at, that's the zoom scale it's going to look at in the GIS when it pulls the capture out of the GIS. So you got to kind of know where stuff shows up. Like, we get way more detail on our facilities the closer that you zoom in. But, this is really just to be used for reference. So, when you're getting ready to import, you know where to make your boundaries for your import to bring the stuff in from GIS. But you can see I brought in, some facilities right there. I can throw some land base out of behind it from, our GIS. And then, and as you can see, my extents there is just a raster. And then the other, let me clear these again. I think I have to. There we go. Turn this back on. So this is our work order polygons. Obviously there's no information to it. It's just showing you like, hey, there's work going on in this area. Go check it out at this point right now. Go check it out in the GIS, where you can get all that information. But it's a good, quick way without having to open everything else up to know while you're in AUD, like, hey, you got some other things to do here. So those are our previews. let me jump back and, oops. All right. SAP equipment details. So when we import from GIS, we are pulling in a bunch of attribute information data, but in some cases, it's not all there. So SAP is our, basically where all our assets are housed. So we created a service to be able to reach out to SAP and suck in equipment data, out of SAP and populate it, back populate it. So. Let me see what I said here. Yeah, so one of the nice things about this is, you can just throw a feature in and type in the structure number and then make the call and pull that data in. And you can be one to many, however many objects, that you want to select. You can run that all at the same time. All right. Let me get to that here. I know it's not like super exciting. It sounds neat, and then it's like, oh, all you did was push a button. So basically right now, all I had to do on my poll was just provide the structure number. That's all that's required. And then I can come up and click SAP equipment details. And it's going to give me a message back saying that I did it successful. There are a few error codes that come back from SAP if it couldn't retrieve the record, for whatever reason, and it'll tell you, what those reasons are. But basically what we've done, if I go back and select this poll now, so I was able to bring in all this different information about this poll. So I have, anything that was inside of the SAP record, I've basically associated here. We're not really doing anything with that right now, but it is there, for informational purposes. There's a few things like JPA numbers and that types of stuff that we plan on populating in the future and creating some reports and stuff like that. But so that's SAP equipment details. We have a similar thing for meters. So all of our customer information moved from a homegrown application into SAP ISU. And so we actually now have the ability to make a call and pull the device location and all the meter customer information. We're using very little of that in the AUD design because we're not. Well, that was one of the things we were trying to get away from in our last system, was not doing much with meters. So we're just providing basic like address information and stuff like that. But makes it nice and easy for the designer, not having to go search somewhere else and then come back and type it. They can suck that data in. And I won't demo that because it basically looks the same as SAP equipment details, does the same kind of thing. All right, annotations, everybody's favorite thing. When I was putting this together, I was kind of laughing because all I'm going to do is press a button and my annotation is going to show up and you're going to be like, ooh, that's really neat. But what actually went into making it do that is like, it was a lot of work. So, but hopefully it gives you some ideas of what can be done. The first one would be, we call it the station call out. That's the work location, basically. In our old tool, in the old AUD, we actually had a custom user interface where we entered in material. And as part of that, we actually had the ability to like edit the descriptions of the material, move the order of it, of how it showed up in the call out when we placed the call out. And obviously, AUD doesn't work like that now. All your annotations are rules driven. I'll say out of all the things that we delivered, this is the thing we got the most complaints about because people wanted to be able to move everything around. But what that really happened with it for us caused problems. You saw how many designers we have, how many different departments we have. Everybody was doing it different. Like the descriptions were different, the order of the material was different. Like it was crazy. And so this actually was helped us drive consistency. We had to fight real hard with everybody on rollout. Hey, the material screen's not coming back. It's not part of the product. But what we've had to do basically is write some custom rules, you know, to be able to really show the way the material that we wanted. You know, part of that first part was we got everybody together and said, okay, how do you think it should go? Like, what order should we see the material in? And that was, you know, a lot of work in itself. But the way that we kind of ended up with was, and I'll kind of show you a generalization of how we're doing that. But one of the things that we did do is we're rolling up totals of like CUs. So, you know, if you have multiple runs of the same conductor that's the same CU, it'll roll it up into a single total in the call out just to help with white space management. But the material lines still stay the same. We added ability to add notes to individual line items in the call out. And then we also added the ability to break out those rolled up totals. So in the case that, like, you know, some multiple items got rolled up into one total in the call out, but you wanted it to show, you know, as a separate line item, put some notes with it in the call out, you can do that. And then our call out's dynamic. And so we do have some different annotation attributes that we use to work with that. So I told Jim that I hope I don't offend him with my high-level generalization of the rules that he wrote for this. Basically, you know, what we're doing is we're starting out with the construction type, you know, is it overhead or underground? Then the service type, is it primary, secondary, service, street light? And then it kind of goes to the feature class. And it kind of orders it the way that I showed you. So if it's primary, you know, structure's always going to be at the top for us if you have a structure in the list. And then everything else falls behind that. So primary duct, primary pole head, primary equipment, primary conductors, and then secondary, you know, and so on and so on. And then it breaks it down by status. So status is very, very important to us. A lot of our pricing rules in our costing tool are driven by the status. So like the top half, you know, we have like 4 different statuses or 5 different statuses for remove. And we have like 3 or 4, maybe 5 different install type statuses. They all mean things, but they all should be shown in a very specific way in the call out. So as you can see, it's starting to get way more complex, right? You know, it's not just like, oh, just put in first, you know, it's more than that. But at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do, this is what it really all boils down to, was when you're on a pole, it builds the pole from the top down. And then if it's an underground structure, it's from the structure out, is basically what we're doing with it. All right. Oops. Let's see. Let me move this guy back here. I'll kind of show you. I won't get too deep in this. I'm already over my time, I'm sure. I told you guys I could talk all day about this. What was that? I could. But then I won't know what to do because it's a different color. I'll be like, oh my goodness. That just blinds me. How's that for you guys? Does that help you guys? No? Yeah? Okay. You're probably not going to be able to see my call out now because all our call outs are for black. But anyhow, so basically, let me just kind of show you what we have here. You know, I've got my pole. And I'll run through these quick. Got my pole head, you know, my insulators, my conductors. I put primary, secondary service on there. And then, you know, basically all I had to do was put, you know, my pole number in. And then now I'm going to come, you know, select my things that I want to put in my call out. All right. So you can see at the top, you know, it's got the pole, then you got the cross arm, then you got my equipment, and then you've got my conductor, the insulators, and then it's moving down to secondary now. There's my secondary conductor, there's my service conductor, and then my down guys and my, you know, my down guys and my anchors are always going to come last. So that's kind of how that works. While we're here, I'll show you some of the dynamic stuff that we have. So this is all these attributes are always going to be on the structures. We, you know, typically tend to, or, you know, 9 times out of 10, we're going to station the structure. We do have cases where we are stationing equipment when we're having to use separate work order numbers because our costing tool can't accept multiple work order numbers on one station. So that was kind of a weird one. But anyhow, so if you, let me move this over, we can kind of see. I'm on the pole. So the first one I'll show is the high fire. And this is what we're going to try, what we're talking about automating. Right now, it's just an attribute that the user has to set. Oops. Sorry, I need better glasses. It's hard for me to see my screen from here. Let me actually select something this time. So if you look on the call out, when this finishes right above where it says pole, it's actually in yellow. You can't see. There we go. So it populates extreme up there for you. Then we have the pole set type. So this would just be like a new pole going in, you know, nothing in the way. We do have different things. So these are more like crew notes. So like if it's an intercept pole, we're going to call it out interset or hard set or same hole. You know, we kind of gave those things. We did also add, if there's an easement required, it's going to populate automatically if you set that. I'm going to put it at the top. And then we added a place where you can type in a note. So this may be something that we automate more in the future, but right now it's just a type in. It allows you to kind of put, you know, existing equipment on the pole. So, you know, part of our rules right now say, hey, if something's status that is as existing, obviously it doesn't go on the material list, so it doesn't show up in the work location. So the reason that we didn't kind of really automate this yet was because what if you don't want something to show up? You know, so That's why we have it as a type in right now. So that's my overhead. Oh, we did do this. Crazy people, crazy request. So we do have, for when we can have work orders where we have, or designs that have up to 10 different work order numbers on it, depending on what kind of work that you're doing. You know, some of it could be program work, some of it's maintenance, some of it's new, you know, that kind of stuff. So some of these jobs are so big, it's too hard to like read through the map and say, hey, which work order number is it? And by the way, we are populating the work order number right here where it says TD above it. But what we're doing is we actually have a legend for this that gets placed as part of the final map, and it has the TD numbers that actually match the different shapes. And so they'll actually helps with the work order review and keeping things straight. And that we'll probably throw into the attributes and relate it to the legend that we created. We just haven't gotten that far yet on that kind of stuff. All right, I'll just show a quick one on underground. I don't want to belabor this. I just want to show how we split out stuff. So I'll select these. Oops. So as you can see, it did the same type of thing. You've got the vault, and then it has the switch and the duct and the cable. But if you can see, so when I look here, I actually have a couple different runs. I have some primary and some secondary, but it rolled all the duct up into one total. So you can't tell like how many feet. I mean, you know, is primary, how many secondary. And this we've actually added on anything. So any feature that does this, that rolls up, you can do this, but this was an easy example. So I can go to the duct, and this one's my primary one. So I'm going to come down, and in my attribute here, typed in primary, and it breaks it out now, and you can see that where I typed in primary. So we're looking right here now. So now it went from like, you know, 500 to 187. So it broke out that individual run. And so I can do that on any of them. So like if I will go to my secondary now, so now I broke out my secondary. So that's been very helpful, and that's kind of how we appeased the users. They're like, hey, we can't write notes. We're going to burst the call out. And we're like, no, don't burst the call out, please. So this has been actually helped us out a lot by adding that. That was something that we added after the fact, you know, after rollout, just based on feedback, you know, and stuff. So that's been very helpful to us. All right. This is our pride and joy right here, or it's our worst nightmare, the next one. So this is our underground duct and cable call out. We needed the ability to capture the number, the size, the length of the ducts. That's pretty common. We needed the ability to capture the cables in the duct with the status and the phasing and the cable pulling results. So we show the cable pulling results on the map as part of our print. So that was one of the requirements. We need the ability to control and track duct runs breaking off from the main trench line. So trench is very important to us. We actually tax customers on trench. It's a tax that gets collected by the state. And so we get audited on that. So we have to be very careful in how we do our trenches. So, you know, you got to make sure you're not doubling up segments and stuff, because every time you put a segment in, we're charging for more trench excavation and stuff like that. So that was one of the things. And then we have different call out displays for white space management. So again, for some people, they may be like, ooh, big deal. We'll just use this same one here. So our call out is actually related to the duct. So you can see the 3 in the circle, that's our run number. And then the box, it tells you how many ducts, what size, and how many feet. And then below, obviously, it has the from to. So it's telling you what structure that it's running from, where it's going to. And then it tells you the cable. This happens to be primary, so it tells you the voltage. And then the tension results at the end. Woohoo! So, I'll just show you the couple different views, and then we'll go to the more complicated one. So on the duct itself, the attribute is there in our feature information. Oh, I'm on the conductor. I'm like, where is it? There we go. So call out type. So we have different uses for this, but we have the CICF conduit and cable, which is what I just showed you. Then we have conduit only, and we have memo when we're crossing prints. So we don't double call out the lengths and stuff on it. But it's all dynamic, so I just come here and change it. And then there we go. So now you see the cable and the cable point results are no longer showing. It's just a duct only call out. And then the memo. So we have this for basically all the status or all the types. So for primary, secondary, service, street light, we have different variations of this, but works the same way. So here's the fun one. So right now I think I have, okay, so I just have one duct, one cable right now. I'm gonna add 5 more in there. Okay. So the first thing that we want to look at here is what it does by default is you can see it places them all in a different run number. And this was important to how I was speaking of how we need to break out our ducts and our trench and all that stuff. So this gives us like total control of putting stuff where it belongs. AUD will we had some struggles with that until we kind of implemented the run number, and then that really like smoothed it out. So what I'm wanting to do, since these are all in the same trench, they're all going from the same from to, I'm going to put them all in the same run. That's my first step here. So I'm going to come down and we'll just put them in run 1. Okay. And then now I'm going to place the call out, and then I'll show you the fun stuff. All right, so you can see in my call out now it says 6 3-inch. So it captured all of them. I put them all on the same one. We have all the conductor broken out still because those most likely can be separate circuits. So we want to make sure that we're identifying the separate circuits. But if you look at the bottom, the tension results, there's just one result because we're using all the same cable. So there was no reason to show it multiple times. So it knows if it's the same duct, the same cable CU, then just give us the one result. So that's fun. This is where it gets fun. So I'm going to select my ducts again. So I'm going to start changing the sizes of the duct. I'll do one more and then that'll be enough. And then we'll wrap it up here. So I'll put you guys to sleep. So now when you look at my call out, it's dynamic and now it's capturing all the different duct sizes. It's telling me, and it goes basically from the smallest size to the largest size from top to bottom, right? So if you look at the top, I still only had 3 I didn't change. So there's 3 3-inch now, 1 4-inch, 1 5-inch, 1 6-inch duct. So it's tracking the size and how many ducts I have. Also the cables you can see, but you can also notice at the bottom the pulling tension because I changed the duct size that it gave me the results for the ones where, it's different. So this took us a long time to get right. The guy, the SME that we worked with, they were doing this with Autolist in the old program that they were using, and they were using multiple callouts, and he had all kinds of crazy rules. But we're pretty proud of this one. It works pretty seamlessly now, and it's real nice. So I think that's it. I know it went way over time. Like I said, I could talk all day. We have more callouts, but these were probably the hardest. There are some other things, like I heard some folks talk about cable lengths. So we actually put in some attributes for like wrapping of structures. So we put that power into the designer's hands. So, like we have the AUD generated length, and then if you need wrapping, so we have like just a true false field that says, do you want it for the upstream structure and for the downstream structure, and you do those, and it'll automatically create a separate line item because we actually code that wrapping cable different, so it'll create separate line items and stuff like that. So, all right. Well, that's it. Any last questions? Hang on, let me pull up a design and I'll show you a print. Yeah. I mean, so like it depends, most groups, so like the local planning groups that are doing like the 1 or 2 work locations are printing on 11 by 17, and then, our other big jobs are usually 24 by 36, or, that's typical. And we put a lot of like construction notes, decals, and those are usually by our standard or on a separate page, and then you just have the design. Here, let me back out of here real quick. We live in California, dude. That should explain it. Yeah, I don't know. All I know is that we have to account for it. That is like a whole completely other group that handles all of that. We just capture the total from design and push it through the work order. Like our costing tool has the, yeah. I'm just picking a needle out of the haystack here. Let me open up one, see if this has any plots on it. So it depends on what system they were in. Like they were using mtext, or they were bursting call outs and adding text to them, or like in the station call out, our old custom user interface actually had a notes field where you could edit the description. And so one of the things I will say that our designers don't like, and I'm not like major AutoCAD person, but we got too far in and then we got this feedback and it was like, oh, well, so, we, we decided to go with annotative scaling, and, our station callouts are annotative, and when you put them in paper space, they don't work real good. So I've kind of read a little bit about that. But so on these big jobs, they're doing viewports for some of those. They don't particularly like that, but that was kind of a trade-off that we had to do to kind of go with that. So.